Well, buckle in, my friends. This is going to be a long episode. I got quite a bit to talk about. We're going to definitely review Twilight Survivors and Banchild Tactics. Both of those games came out last week. I've been able to spend quite a bit of time playing them, so we're going to talk about those. And I want to get into some of this discussion about the Nintendo Switch 2 being delayed, the Direct, the Xbox podcast, all of that stuff. Nothing specific, but I will speak candidly on a lot of this stuff. But anyway, before we get into that, please hit that like, subscribe button. It means a lot to me. I appreciate each and every one of you guys doing that. It really helps the channel out, and you're amazing. That really keeps me going. So anyway, let's start off with an easy one, and let's talk about Twilight Survivors. So, just so you know, this is a survivor game, as you can guess. When I say survivor game, I mean like Vampire Survivors and those type of games where you have like a hordes and hordes of enemies on the screen, and your character is attacking on its own, and all of that is sort of figured out through cooldowns and whatever weapons you get, and basically you're just trying to steer your character out of harm's way. Well, Twilight Survivors is a little bit different in the fact that, number one, most of these games do have a little bit of a lore to them, a little bit of a story, but there's quite a bit more with Twilight Survivors. In fact, giving a backstory to most of the characters, and the more lore that you uncover, actually the more you can upgrade these characters. Now, how do you do that? Well, another way that this game separates itself from the pack is that it actually has stages and bosses, and if you can get to a certain time, let's say 12 minutes, then that's the end of the stage after you fight the boss, and you go on to the next stage. All of this is really done more like a level designer, like stages and areas, less than like more just like an open area like Void Scrappers, where it's essentially just the same environment and you're just trying to see how long you can stay alive. It's a little bit different, like I said, than that. Not to mention the fact that your characters also matter. Not all of the times would I say a lot of Survivor games it matters as much, because it really is just your starting weapon. And with a lot of those, you're able to pick up different weapons, and they're all rather interchangeable at some point. But with this game, that's not it at all. In fact, there's only one character who uses a sword. There's only one character who has like this defense ball that he uses, which is interesting to explain because he kind of is a ball. Not the point. My point is, though, is you are sort of married to the attack style and weapon based upon the character. Not to mention that the leveling up process, the upgrading part, if you will, is a little bit more just directed. I don't know how to say that, but it's a little bit more focused than a lot of the other ones, and I'm not comparing them or saying one's bad, one's not. I'm just saying the upgrading in this game is a little bit more character specific, and so if you just have really good runs with a certain character, then you probably want to put a lot of your money upgrading that character. But aside from the lore, the fact that it does break down into stages, there are specific bosses, things of that nature. I'd say like the other big point about this game is the movement. The movement is slow, and it is kind of sluggish and hard to get used to. But I will say that the reason I think they do that is not only does this game have really good graphics and it performs really well, like it keeps up. It's very impressive what it's able to do. And the fact that you have all these attacks going, you have this horde of enemies that just keep growing. The characters actually look really nice, like the graphics and the details, pretty phenomenal considering what's going on in the game. So I think they have to slow it down just a little bit with your character, and the fact that your character is kind of a badass. You can really upgrade yourself way too much in this game. That's the other thing. The game's kind of easy. I haven't really ran into a part where I couldn't get past it. Not to mention the fact that when you're leveling up on the battlefield, you can also just put some of your points into getting revives, which is so much different than the rest of these games where most of the time you die, you're dead, that's it. No, not this one. You can actually get up to, I think I've gotten 3 revives in a stage before. That is just very counter to what a lot of these games are normally structured like. You know, it's not really the business model of a survivor game, and I don't know, I appreciate that. I like that they're trying something different. I like that there's a different world. They're trying to shake things up, because I think this is a new genre that is going to be really big, and I really like it. So anything that's adding to that, I enjoy it. So ultimately for me, this game gets about an 8 out of 10. And the best part is it's like $2.99. So like, even if you don't like it, it's like $3. It's not like a huge investment on your part. So definitely worth a pickup unless you just absolutely hate Survivor games, then yeah, don't get this one. On to another game that I've been playing a lot this week, and that is a game called Banchao Tactics. Now, this game marketed itself as an RPG tactic style game that happens in the 80s in a Japanese high school, where there's a turf war going on between different gangs. And that is sort of what's happening. You're essentially, though, more like the schools, the different schools are more fighting for territory. And they're trying to claim who's the bigger and better school, who's the toughest in that school. And I don't know, for me, it sort of reminds me of like a throwback to an 80s movie, which all of this sounds really good. Graphically, it's done pretty well. It's got like more of that pixelized art style, which works well, especially with strategy RPGs. It's very clear. The game runs really well. I never had the game like freeze up, block up, anything like that. It performed like it should. I will say that for me, the biggest issue was the actual story and the lack thereof of story. So for one, throughout the game, they just throw a bunch of characters at you. There is always 2 main characters that sort of start the game, and you basically take the role as one of them with a very limited amount of decision making. Basically, right before a fight, you decide how you're going to tick off the other gang that you're fighting. And these 2 characters, I think, are named Taiga and Haru, and I'm probably way off with those, but you take control of Taiga. He's like a red-haired teenager. And he's sort of a badass, if I'm being honest. He's a little bit on that, like, energetic side, but also kind of oblivious, as where your buddy, he's kind of the smart, intellectual one, and he actually runs as more of, like, your healer / like, distance attacker. And so that pairing is pretty cool, but again, there's just a lot of characters thrown at you, and a lot of different schools named, and it's kind of hard to keep up, if I'm being honest, like, especially because they don't ever really give much of a birth to any of these characters besides the first 2. But not only that, it's the fact that before a battle and after the battle, there'll be some brief dialogue, and that's it. And then it's the end of the stage, or the end of the chapter. You move on to the next chapter, be a little brief dialogue, something about how one gang is going to try to take over the land, and then you're in a battle again. And I don't know, I was hoping for more of a life sim a little bit, just a little bit more. I'm not talking about like dating and all that stuff, but like a little bit more of high school life, a little less like mechanical, if you will. This feels to me almost like the last game, where it's like level by level by level, and there isn't a lot of game outside of just what's on the battlefield. And you know what, like that could be fine if the gameplay itself and the combat wasn't very, very basic. I mean, it doesn't add much. No, it doesn't add anything to what has already been done when it comes to strategy RPGs. In fact, most of the characters, as you would think, don't really have any major attacks besides like just punching each other. I mean, they're a bunch of teenagers. Like, what do they have, like guns? Like, it does try to be realistic in the fact that there isn't weapons, a lot of them anyway, and not a lot of like exotic weapons. So it has to kind of fall in that realm of almost not being boring, but just being very basic. And what it does, it's fine. It's a fun game. It's very enjoyable, like I said, but it's also very mid. I hate saying that because it sounds like I'm attacking it or I don't like the game. I think for what's there, it's a decent game. My issue is when you start adding in the cost of the game. And does it really live up to that? And I would argue it doesn't. Even though it's a decent game, it's, as I said before, as far as looks, it looks really good. I mean, it's not like eye-poppingly gorgeous, but for an indie game, it looks pretty good. The combat is simplistic and subpar, if I'm being honest. It just doesn't add much. The story feels rushed, and what is there isn't done very well. It definitely could have been written better. They could have expanded on it more. You could care a little bit more. I know that's a rough way to say things, but for me, the story was so lacking. The dialogue wasn't really there. I didn't really become attached to any of the characters. And for me, when you're playing an RPG, those are 2 major components. Now, if you want to just forego that and have really great combat, then okay, we can do that too. But it doesn't bring that part either. So for me, honestly, The game gets about a 5.5 out of 10. Like I said, it does its job, but when I consider value and I consider the issues that it has along the way, that's about as high as I can get, maybe a 6 if you want, but it's just that price point is competing with games like Persona 4 Golden, and you can't tell me that it's even close, even in the ballpark of Persona 4 Golden, or Persona 3 for that matter. There's a lot of games that I think do what they're trying to do, but do it far better for around that price. So if it was a little bit cheaper, I wouldn't have as much of an issue with it. And in fact, if you could get it for, I would say, anywhere between like $7 to $10, it's an alright pickup. But at $20 at its current cost, in that range, I can't remember exactly how much it is, but yeah, I don't think it's worth it. Okay, so let's get into this. I almost edited this out like multiple times. I've recorded this a few times just because of the way I've said things and because I don't want to be negative. And I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to war with anyone. No, it's not about that. It's actually about a conversation that I would like to have. So for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of gaming news channels on YouTube. Tons of them. Like, it is probably the most popular type of channel involving gaming, aside from maybe Let's Plays or just live streams. There's a ton of these gaming news channels. And there's some like Spawnwave that I think do it really well. And when they have leaks, when they have rumors, they're upfront with you. Hey, I don't know if this is true. This is a rumor. They don't clickbait you with some crazy thumbnails. I think he does it right. But there is a lot of them that will gas you up. They will gas up a direct. They will gas up these events and say, hey, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. I've seen recently someone had a thumbnail and said Nintendo Direct, February 22nd. 2024. That was just their thumbnail. Now you're telling me, without saying rumor, leak, anything like that, that's just your thumbnail. Come on, that's clickbait. That's irresponsible. And my point is, for those of you again who don't know, the direct didn't happen on Thursday the 15th like it was supposed to. This was something that was going around all week. These channels did nothing but talk about the Nintendo Direct and the Xbox podcast. And, well, of course, the Switch too, because of course they have to. So I'll start first with the Nintendo Direct coverage. And the thing that everyone was saying was the Direct is going to happen February 15th, 2024. The one YouTuber put up a thumbnail, like I said, of just that with the Nintendo Direct logo and all that stuff going on. Many of them confirmed, like, yeah, this is going to happen. Our sources say so, which is basically just Twitter. It's basically them either finding people who are known leakers and rumor spreaders and whatever, insiders, if you will. And then some of them are just random people on Twitter, which I don't feel like that's a source. That is not something you should be able to say with confidence that, oh, hey, some rando on social said this was going to happen, so I'm going to gas you all up and not even really lean on the fact that it's a rumor. I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to, oh my God, we're going to have the Direct. We're going to be streaming it. It's going to be the 15th, and we can already look at games that might come out for it. We're going to predict what games are on there. We're going to be all excited. And then when it doesn't happen, these people don't take responsibility. There's no accountability for the fact that they lied. And they even come out and say, well, it wasn't my fault. I get the same information that anyone else can. Well, okay, but you did just take a lot of time. And these are the same people who make a really good living essentially going through Twitter and reporting what they see on Twitter. And that just bothers me. And I don't even know if it's the fact that they're wrong. And part of me wonders if it's the fact that we go in on them so much, that we believe them. Isn't that partly our responsibility? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Being a reviewer doesn't give me a lot of clicks, doesn't give me a lot of views. In fact, it's one of the worst things to get attention. There's a reason why so many of them, gaming channels, are news related and leak rumors, all that stuff, because that's what gets the clicks. So in a way, I don't blame them for doing something that the public wants, obviously, but it does make me personally say, I don't know if these people are actually helping the gaming industry as a whole, and gaming in general. You know, I don't care about the big corporate suits and whatever. I'm talking about just gaming in general, because it's not only the fact that, yeah, they might misrepresent a date. They might have got something wrong. Hey, well, it turns out that the Switch Direct or the Nintendo Direct got pushed back because of another event that was happening, which doesn't make sense when you actually look at it logically. Not my point. But it's also when they start predicting what's going to be in the Direct, right? And they'll tell you, oh, the Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to be in there, and Butterfly Kisses, and Nintendo is going to be your genie and grant you all your wishes and whatever. And then when the Direct happens, and that's not there, then everyone says, oh, the Direct sucked. But Nintendo didn't tell you what was going to be in that Direct. No, it's these channels. It's all these people gassing it up. So you can't really blame Nintendo. They weren't the ones that got expectations so high that when it didn't produce, they sort of just dropped. And that's just something I think about. Like, think about the indie games that are announced, the games that people haven't heard of, the games that maybe don't get the attention, and now they got this one Direct, but this Direct is basically being considered a failure because of some YouTuber who promised a whole bunch of stuff that never happened. And maybe the game doesn't get looked at. Maybe the game gets forgotten. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's where my head's at with a lot of it. You know, not to mention the fact that the other thing was the Xbox podcast. And, you know, I saw so many channels talking about the end of Xbox. And Xbox is going away. They're not going to make hardware anymore. They're giving away all of their titles to other platforms. And it turns out, and again, this is speculation, I don't know, but it turns out that the games that they were most likely talking about being on other consoles and platforms are Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, which we already expected, Pentiment, which is an indie game in that same area, Hi-Fi Rush, and Grounded. So we had 2 live service games and 2 indie games. They even said specifically, like, Starfield isn't going to be on that list. Indiana Jones is not on that list. But people were already willing to just say all this like crazy stuff about Microsoft and Xbox, essentially just giving up and becoming a full-time publisher. You see what I'm saying? And like, when you think about real-world impact, let's just think like the stock market, for instance. Now, I know that doesn't matter to most of us, but it does have an impact. Or what about the people who are thinking about buying an Xbox? What about the people who are debating what console to get, and their big outlet is some YouTuber who's saying crazy stuff to get clicks, essentially. And when they're wrong, they don't eat it. And that's my problem. They don't come out and say, you know what, I was completely wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Or when I was giving you the information, I should have said over and over, it's a rumor, it's a leak, I don't know, it's probably not true. No, I was celebrating that this thing is going to happen. It's like the Switch 2. Most recently, like about a week ago, one of these channels was patting themselves on the back saying, look, I told you the Switch 2 is going to come out, which, by the way, is ridiculous because, of course, it was going to come out at some point. And, by the way, this channel started reporting on the Switch 2 in 2020. Okay, so, yeah, hey, I can make a prediction, too. The PlayStation 7 is going to come out at some point. Of course it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's ridiculous. But they were, you know, basically doing a victory lap last week talking about how they called it, the Switch 2 is coming out in 2024. And guess what? Just recently, it looks like it got delayed to 2025, according to another rumor or leak. Who knows? Who knows when it's going to? And by the way, it's that same channel that told me that. So it's like, you take it all with a grain of salt. But I guess my question to all of you is, are these people actually helping gaming in general? Are they helping it or are they hurting it? I don't know. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. But anyway, that's it. I appreciate each and every one of you, especially any of you who stayed this long. This is like one of the longest videos I did. By the way, starting off, because I'm kind of experimenting with how to do this. Do I want to make it more like a show? Do I want to do individualized videos for reviews? I'm definitely going to add timestamps into these more like show-structured episodes. But I'm definitely going to try for the next few videos just to be nothing but a review of a game. One video, one game, and that's really about it. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. Love you all so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to do this. And yeah, can't thank y'all enough. Love y'all. Bye-bye.